I don't think America wants a war with Russia and vice versa. I don't think Russia wants a war with the US. I think there's a mutual respect. This is not really about America versus Russia. Like, I've never thought of it that way. I've never once said that America's going to go with Russia. I mean, in every single video that I've done on this subject, I've always said that America is not going to have a war with Russia. It's just not going to happen. Russia could have Russia could have wars with her neighbors, with Ukraine, maybe with with Germany in the future, with European countries, with Asian countries like Japan. But I don't see Russia having a war with America. Some guy tried to make an argument with me saying, well, America did have a war with Russia after World War I with the intervention against the Bolsheviks. That wasn't really a war. I mean, that was more of a interventionist policy. And the U.S. government had no intention of fighting Russian troops. America was there to simply back the White Army. That was more of a proxy war than anything else. I'll be honest with you guys, I prefer to talk about music than I do talking about anything else. Like, I love talking about music, food, and video games. I love talking and gardening. I love talking about those subjects. I love talking about video games, Resident Evil, especially Resident Evil. I like talking about Red Dead Redemption. I can talk about that. Far Cry. I love video games, and I love music, and I love cooking, and I love gardening. The subject that I like the least talking about, the subject that I like talking about the least is politics. I don't like talking about politics, even though I do it all the time. It's not enjoyable. I just do it because I like the idea of ideology and how ideology affects political events and how ideology has changed history. I like that idea. I like talking about that. I like talking about how ideologies influence different countries or political parties and societies. I like talking about how religion influences people. I like talking about how the subject of God establishing the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church turning against God and being just like Israel after the crucifixion. The Catholic Church turning to Sodom. I like talking about all those things because they matter. Those things matter because they reflect not only the current state of humanity, but the future state of humanity. But what I don't like talking about is like this one particular story and what's happening with that story. Like, I don't like the whole Ukraine thing. Everyone's saying, oh, America could go to war with Ukraine. America can go to war with Ukraine. And I did videos on the subject, not to say, oh, yeah, we could have a war with Ukraine or no, a war with Russia, not Ukraine. We could have a war with Russia and Moscow is being aggressive and Washington is going to we're going to have troops we could have troops on the ground. We need to have troops on the ground, guys. We got to put troops on the ground, like on the coast of the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff because it's bullshit. But when I did my videos on that topic, or when I do my videos on that topic, I always will mention how America's not going to go to war with Russia. This is not about America having a war with Russia. This is not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about how this is going to affect the ideology or the political atmosphere in the Ukraine, how this is going to increase Ukrainian nationalism, how this is going to increase German nationalism, how this is going to increase the idea of a Euro military force. All of these things. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the long term, and I'm not thinking about this like unrealistic idea of America and Russia having a war in the middle of I don't know, Vladivostok somewhere. How is this going to affect Japan? Because Japan had a war with Russia in the past, a real war with Russia in the past. So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the big picture. I like talking about the big picture, and I like talking about how ideology affects people. But what I don't like talking about is, oh, Speaker of the House, blah, 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 said this about this other guy. And like, who gives a shit, to be honest with you? That's just a boring subject. I like talking about the bigger picture at hand and what we can expect just by looking at current events and how current events could reflect what is to come.